Welcome to Kingdom Conversations, where faith meets community. Join us as we delve into current events that matter to you. Hear inspiring human interest stories that uplift and connect us. Enjoy insightful interviews with leaders and changemakers. Hosted by Pastor Colin Zadays, your guide through Kingdom Conversations. Let's explore our kingdom together in every episode.
Hello, my name is Reverend Colin Zadays, the pastor of the Second Baptist Church in Atlantic City, New Jersey. If you're looking for a church home, a place to reconnect, a great place of fellowship, join us at Second Baptist Church here in Atlantic City, where everyone is welcome and the love of Christ is alive. Our Sunday worship services are 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and don't miss our evening 7 p.m. hour of power, a dynamic time of praise, worship, and encouragement. Midweek, refuel your spirit with corporate prayer. Wednesday at 11 a.m., Newsday service at 12 p.m., Bible study at 7 p.m. We're located 110 Reverend Dr. I.S. Cole Plaza, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Call us 609-348-3580 or email us at secondbaptistac@gmail.com. Please come. We're looking forward to having you. You'll never be the same. Find us, if you like, on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll see you at Second Baptist. Exciting news from Second Baptist Church, Atlantic City. Giving just got easier. We now offer convenient online giving options to support the ministry anytime and anywhere. Simply visit Linktree Second Baptist AC, linktree.ee/secondbaptistac, or scan the QR code to get started. Don't forget to include your tithe number and designation, whether it's tithes, offerings, missions, or more. And thank you again for your generosity and faithful stewardship. SBC Giving, online giving made easy. Welcome again to Kingdom Conversations. We are really grateful and thankful that you've joined us this evening, and we have a really good show. And before we start tonight, I want to thank my co-host, Eddie Wilson, for standing in for me on last week. Thank you for doing a great job, and we thank God for the guest that we had last week, and he'll be standing in for me in another week or two. My wife and I will be going to Australia, and we'll be there for a couple of weeks. And I'll be looking forward to coming back and talking about our adventures and what the Lord doors the Lord opened for us there in Australia. We'll be in the great city of Brisbane, and we'll be working and at the conference of the World Baptist Alliance, 51 million people, and we're really grateful and excited for that trip. But we're really grateful today. We have two guests that's going to be on with us today, and both of them are very informative, and you need to be a part of this Kingdom Conversation about some very important things, both of them dealing with health. One is dealing with addiction. We're really grateful to have Lisa L. with us, and also we're going to have with us today Christian Ragland from AtlantiCare, dealing with health disparities in our community. But first, let me welcome someone that I've known for quite a long time, and we often have conversations, and she visits my office from time to time, and we are grateful to have with us none other than Sister Lisa L. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Dave. Such a warm welcome. Truly, I appreciate this great opportunity that is bestowed upon us this day to have a conversation with those that are watching this great video, YouTube, whichever way that you're watching it, through YouTube.
And listening on radio, WEHA.
Yes, wonderful. Wow, how times have changed, and how we're being able to get the message out even more to those that's in need. So my purpose was to come today to have a conversation about addiction. And so often we have conversations surrounding addiction, about which drug is best or better, or what to do, what not to do, and what's going on. But I like to dive a little deeper, looking into the human element that's surrounding addiction. How many of you know someone, or is that someone experiencing some challenges with addiction? So I'm talking about whether it's drugs, alcohol, vaping, whatever. Even now it's video game technology. So we know someone this is strongly impacting. but most of all will tend to question their behavior and say, this is something, you need to get your life together. You need to do something better than what you're doing. But I'm here to invite you into having a deeper conversation, not just a superficial one that says they need to stop doing what they're doing, but looking deeper at what is that they're doing.
Well, Lisa, it's really, that I've worked with in addiction for a long time. Our church has been greatly involved in addiction counseling, Christian recovery for many years. I served on the board of John Brooks Recovery Center for a number of years. And so when we talk about addiction, that's something close to my heart. We've got a team that's right now, that out on the streets, that's doing ministry for the homeless and addicted. And so that's something we've been involved in years. So we want to talk about it. So I know both sides of this thing, the spirituality, as ministering to the whole person, dealing with addiction through counseling, through drug treatment programs, through methadone and Suboxone. So when you start talking about the other element of the human being, tell us, what do you mean by that?
So I mean the core things, like the things that we talk about, like what I heard you say about the methadone treatment, some of the medication applications that's given to relieve the symptoms that one may experience through detoxing. But we're talking about like what takes a person. People say, I don't want to be like that, or I'll never be like that, but we don't understand what that looks like. We don't understand, like I know for myself, I came from a family that the addiction was part of the norm. And we had conversations about, well, don't do that, and you're not supposed to do that. But I didn't understand what it was that took them to that place. So when I started to experience it, I started to look deeper, not into just the drug, but what was taking me there. When I didn't feel enough, when I didn't feel a connection, when I was looking for something to fulfill me, drugs was the answer. Drugs gave me this false sense of fulfillment. So even in all the 26 years that I've worked with different people in addiction, I've noticed that some of the same patterns and themes emerge. Feeling that void, feeling that, even like the word noun is more trauma.
Yeah. Before we go any further, tell us something about your background. Before we go in, tell us who you are. Okay. You talked about you've been in addiction you worked with in addiction field for 26 years. What kind of things have you been doing?
Okay, so first of all, my name is Lisa Thomas L. I'm originally from Camden, New Jersey, but like I was sharing with someone else, I've been here since I was about 15 years old. So I can say like this is part of Atlantic County, has been part of my growing up. Then like I got into the career of working at John Brooks Recovery. It was called the Institute of Human Development then. I started out there after going to school at Atlantic County to be an addiction counselor. There is when I met with Mr. Bobo. Remember Mr. Bobo?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I was with John Brooks when they were IHD as well.
Yes.
So I have a long history there as well.
Yeah, and it even goes back as I knew John Brooks. John Brooks and my mother and Betty Ann, they were all friends. So that's kind of like how I got to know John Brooks, the man. So then having struggled with my own addiction, so that's how I really, had face-to-face interactions with John Brooks because of my own addiction and my mother seeking assistance for myself. And through that, I became a counselor. And, that was always that was a passion of mine because I always liked helping people and supporting people and listening to people. Ever since I was little, I always wanted to find out what's going on with you, what's happening with you. So then I got into the field of addiction. Been doing that work since I got clean, I think in 1999. And haven't had any regrets since.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now let's go and delve in. We talked about treating the symptoms, and because I've worked with addicts for a long time as well. You're not advocating that people should not use Suboxone or methadone,
right. Absolutely.
Because that's been a tremendous help for so many people to get
Absolutely.
clean. But you're right that is those drugs treat the symptoms, help people handle the withdrawals.
Right.
But there's a deeper issue that everyone has, and one thing that I think is important, because most people see an addict and they just see what the addiction has made them, but they don't know the backstory. They don't know the person.
Right.
They don't know their story. Everybody has a story.
Absolutely.
Everybody has parents and everybody has family,
Right.
and but they don't know that emotional need, the deep spiritual need. So let's talk about that.
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, the deep spiritual and emotional needs. It's so often we're trying to fix the symptoms, and you're absolutely right. I'm not saying that those substances or those medication protocols are not useful. What I'm saying is, in addition to, including, there's still the emotional baggage that needs to be unveiled. So there's still the inner work that happens. Even after 26 years of being clean, I'm still doing the inner work that's necessary for my development.
When we think about it, I think, when you start doing 12 steps, and 12 steps is really great.
Yes,
we
it
run the
is.
12-step programs. We use it at the church. We've always used the Serenity program, but it goes in. What is it inside that's causing you to have a need? What are you trying to suppress? What are you trying to cover? What are you trying to self-medicate? and I think when you really start dealing with those issues, I think it's really, really important. And sometimes we fail to look at that and try to address those issues because sometimes I do agree. One of my good friends, who is one of the proponents that you ought to do everything cold turkey, that you don't ever need drugs, and so we've had these discussions that that's a way, but not the way.
Right.
And and it may work for some, it may not work for others. But but what you're talking about is something that every person who's in addiction or dealing with a person in addiction needs to deal with. What's going on in the inner man,
Right.
and that needs to be addressed, because if that's not addressed, you'll never really address the issues. Because I think the opportunity to relapse is greater if you don't deal with the inner man.
Right. And so often people think that the relapse is a sign of failure, when relapse can be that reawakening that happens, that's saying there's even more being uncovered. So I have discovered that there's levels to this. Like, so you'll stop the drugs, you'll stop using the substance per se, but then other things is unveiled. Like, even within your family dynamics, like I was, as I was listening to you and talking about the addict, even the labels that we put upon people, like, oh, he's an alcoholic, or he's a dope fiend, or he's a crack addict. Like we use these labels, forgetting the human element. This is a father, this is a son, this is a mother or daughter, this is somebody, like who amongst us don't know someone suffering with addiction? Who amongst us is that family member, like, that feels like their hands are tied and there's no way that they can help that person because they're seeing the degradation that's happening within them? Who amongst us? So what, like, we talk about tough love. I know I grew up with hearing about tough love and people need to just shake it off and stuff. But I feel like we're in a time right now that the emotional element is coming up. Like, we'll talk about it with kids. Kids are so emotional, like, they're so touchy, like, they're so sensitive. Like, I was talking to a parent one day, like, these kids are just so sensitive nowadays. But their sensitivity is allowing us to see the emotional element in humans.
Well, let me just, first of all, I agree with you when you say that oftentimes we let the addiction overwhelm the person, take their personality, take their place, and the person we forget, and we just see the outward. But you're talking about, the real person, the emotional and spiritual being. How about impact that? So what are you really talking about when you say that we've got to start just not look at the medication, the topical things, the symptomatic things
Right.
that we address? What is it that's in a person that is? Just unpack it for us and put it in a way that, you've been in the addiction field a long time. I've been around it. And so, I know in terms of put it in an everyday language that everyone can understand that might be addicted or dealing with an addiction. What is it you're really talking about?
This might seem really simple, but it can be really challenging. Love cures so much. So often we judge a thing and say, this is not acceptable behavior, and this is what you need to do. But when we can connect with that person, like sometimes it's not about what I tell somebody what they need to do or what they should do to fix their problems, but just being a listening ear and connecting to that soul source that's trying to be heard. That's what I'm talking about, the connection, making that deeper connection, seeing them, because most of the time we just want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want somebody to know that I matter. And if my behavior is a reflection of an inconvenience to you, but you don't see that I'm really hurting.
But now, when you say that, we look at those who suffer from addiction, and by their addiction, have had some behaviors that have a negative impact not only them but also on those that love them.
Absolutely.
And have caused sometimes not trauma for family members who goes through who suffer with them through the addiction.
Right.
And if we're honest, sometimes they get to a place where they've had it. They've got to wits end. They've done everything they've done. And now you talk about tough love, and for their own sanity, and sometimes for their own well-being, they say that I've had enough, and this it. I'm going to let you hit bottom. So what are you saying to those who still love them, trying to support them, but they've been through the ringer, and the addiction has not just been for a month or 2 months or a year. That
Yeah.
They've been in addiction for years and years. How do you get them to come to that point to see them in a way? 'Cause the love is always there,
Right.
but the practicality is how do you what is the steps, and what action should they take for the person who's addicted?
I'm gonna be real authentic. Like, I know to say love is an answer, it can sound like, okay, what is she on? Like, what's going on?
No, I believe love is the answer.
Yeah,
There's no question about it. Yeah.
Okay, and that's me and you having that conversation. But somebody else listening and going through what you're talking about, they're literally going through watching this person constantly going through the same cycle over and over, and they're ready to just jump ship. So to say, like, somebody may say, well, what do you mean love is the answer? Like, that person, when I'm able to see, like, I have family members struggling with addiction themselves, but when I remove the judgment of what I think it should look like and add the love, then it opens me up to see them, to discuss possibilities, give people options that they may not have known was available. People, like, you can't force. How often would you want to help people and you have an answer for them, yet they're not willing to even consider it?
Well, tell us, Evans, give us some practical steps for someone, or for even a person who's trying to evaluate their own life in terms of evaluating their addiction. What is it they should be? What should they be asking themselves? What should they be looking for in terms of is there steps? You know, we do the 12-step program, and so in your viewpoint, what is it that we should be? What should we do, and how should we do it?
Okay, so if you're the one in addiction, you first, most of the time we're already at a place of like, I'm sick of this. I know for myself, I was at a road at many different times where it was like, I'm sick of this. And to be presented with, so there's 12-step programs, there's Narcotics Anonymous, there's, recovery and addiction. There's so many other platforms. So there's counseling services. So there's in Atlantic City, there's AtlantiCare. There's different counseling resources that one can engage with, that's going to help them get a clearer perspective. Sometimes when you're in your own head trying to figure it out, having someone else, whether it's your clergyman, whether it's a good friend that can help you process, like, I need support, I need help. Like, 12 steps are free. Yeah. You don't have to have medical services, you don't have to have insurances or any of that. It's free, and it has definitely been a tool that I've used for many of years. So having that, but then there was another layer. We're talking about, like, first you want to stop the drugs. So first you want to get that relief from there, but you're going to have to experience, to get into the emotional element, there's going to be work that needs to be done.
Now when you're dealing with men, and my experience through pastoring and working with young men, when you start talking about emotions and really those things, it's hard to get men to open up by what's really bothering them and what's really going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Dealing with their own fears. Because when you start talking about addiction, and you know very well that addictions normally covering up something. I mean, when you talk about self-medicating, there's some could be childhood trauma, could be relational issues. It could be their own sense of self-worth. There's a myriad of things that they are. So I'm just saying, in terms of when we start thinking about that, there's so many things. That's what sometimes it makes it work in this field, and I got to commend everyone who works in the field of addiction. It's so frustrating because it's not one thing. Yes. They're layered things of issues, and so it's kind of like the onion. You start peeling you're peeling it, and every time you're peeling it, your eyes are watering and tearing because of the great hurt and the great trauma. Yes. And I think that's one of the things too we got to deal with in terms of the hurt. Yes. Not only hurt to others, the hurt to themselves, and even though they may be hurting others, they still feel deeply the hurt that they're causing other people. And the problem, because of the addiction, they can't stop it. They don't have control over it. So speak to that, please. Hello, my name is Reverend Collins Days, the pastor of the Second Baptist Church in Atlantic City, New Jersey. If you're looking for a church home, a place to reconnect, a great place of fellowship, join us at Second Baptist Church here in Atlantic City, where everyone is welcome and the love of Christ is alive. Our Sunday worship services are 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and don't miss our evening 7 p.m. hour of power, a dynamic time of praise, worship, and encouragement. Midweek, refuel your spirit with corporate prayer. Wednesday at 11 a.m., Newsday service at 12 p.m., Bible study at 7 p.m. We're located 110 Reverend Dr. I.S. Cole Plaza, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Call us 609-348-3580 or email us at secondbaptistac@gmail.com. Please come. We're looking forward to having you. You'll never be the same. Find us, if you like, on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll see you at Second Baptist. We here at Second Baptist Church invites you with great expectation to our Men and Women's Day service happening Sunday, August 24, 2025, 8 and 11 and 7 p.m. service. We're celebrating faith, fellowship, and unity with Trustee Donnie Fisher and Deaconess Josephine Talbot serving as our honored chairperson for this special occasion. We're going to have a great time in the Lord. Please bring your family, your friends, and join us for a powerful time of worship and celebration. Mark your calendars, Sunday, August 24th, Second Baptist Church. We can't wait to see you. Exciting news from Second Baptist Church in Atlantic City. Giving just got easier. We now offer convenient online giving options to support the ministry anytime and anywhere. Simply visit Linktree Second Baptist AC, linktr.ee/secondbaptistac, or scan the QR code to get started. Don't forget to include your tithe number and designation, whether it's tithes, offerings, missions, or more. And thank you again for your generosity and faithful stewardship. SBC Giving, online giving made easy.
Do you know that June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month?
No, I was just saying I never heard. I didn't know that was a thing.
Absolutely.
That's bad on my part.
And now you know. Okay. So, but it goes to show, just like you said, that so often men kind of bypass the emotional element. But I will say that I'm seeing more of an incline. Like, we talk about algorithms. So I watch on my playlist and on my phone, I see more like podcasts and discussions with men having these conversations that they didn't have before. I know myself, I have 3 adult males that I birthed. And so I have more conversations into emotional, some of their emotional deficiencies, and as well as emotional growth. Like, how do you take care of you? There's so many expectations that may be placed on men, but how do they really dive into that emotional element that they need support in? Because sometimes I feel like we bypass men and say, like women are the masters of this emotional thing and men are just like on the sidelines, but we're all one and the same.
That's going to be a great discussion. If I think we'll have a conversation about that, a program on that, because I deal with a lot of young men and old men, and I know how tedious it is to get them to talk about issues, especially young men, even when it comes to floating anger and all these other things that are. So we'll have a show on it. I think that would be very interesting.
Absolutely.
Interesting to do. But in your tell us, and we're really grateful to have you come on and be with us, and we'll look forward to having you come on again and spend more time with us.
Yes.
We had another guest that's going to come, and Christian Ragland from AtlantiCare. I'm really grateful to have him with us today. Really excited about the young man. But give us your closing remarks in terms of what would you like to leave with our listening audience.
So this is just the start of a conversation. I want to stir the pot up. I want to, there's an elephant in the room, and it's time to address it. I want to humanize addiction, to remind you that this is someone that you love. You are the one that you've been waiting for. You're the one that you may have been hiding from, trying to suppress, trying to minimize through the use of whatever device that you may have been using. But you're the light. You're the one that is seeking the answers that's internally within you. So this is to open up a conversation. So, originally how we came about was because I talked about having a podcast where we open up a conversation, talking about addiction. So this half hour, this time that we've spent together is just a small token of open up a conversation. So if some things I've said you didn't agree with, wonderful. Some things I've said that you've agreed with, fantastic. But I know that in any conversation, there's a belief that may be within you that somebody can come in and say, well, this is my impression of it, or this is my theory of it, or this is what I've experienced. And so it can stir up some parts of you to say, well, I just don't agree with that. I don't think that's totally true, but it brings up a conversation. So this is me having a conversation with you to enlighten you, enlighten society, the world, to say, listen, you're heard, you're being seen, and we love you, and help is available.
Lisa, we're really grateful. Lisa Thomas L. We're really grateful to have you come and share with us. Thank you for your years in addiction services.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your commitment to the community. And, as always, it's always good to see you and always good to talk to you.
Yes.
And we'll be talking soon. I'm grateful that this is maybe a launch pad into your podcast as you're
Yes.
getting ready to start doing, because we need to have that conversation. We need that extra wraparound services for and every avenues for those who are in addiction and for those who love those who are addicted. So we thank you so much for joining us, and
Thank you.
we look forward to great things in the future. Thank you.
you.
We'd like to now welcome with us our good friend, Christian Ragland. Christian, we're really grateful to have you with us today. We're really excited for all that you're doing in our community, what you're doing at really addressing the health disparities in the African American community. But you're doing so much. I tell people always that we are really excited about who you are and where you're going. There's nobody as energetic as Christian Ragland. And really addressing the issues in our community. You're always there. You're the guy we can put a call into, and you're going to answer the call, and I mean, you get right on it. And I'm really grateful for you and all the work that you're doing through AtlantiCare to benefit. So welcome, Christian, and we're really grateful for being with us tonight on Kingdom Conversations.
No, well, first, thank you. And, as I always tell you, pay deference to you as a young boy, watching you lead the community, not only in the faith-based sector, but also in the community development space. And so I'm only standing on your shoulders, sir. And we're just grateful to be here. And AtlantiCare is a huge partner to the community as it pertains to health disparities and life expectancy. So excited to be here.
Well, we're talking about, there's so much for us to cover in the short time that we're here, and you've been with us before. This is our first time on this particular format, and we're really grateful to have you. You're so knowledgeable of some issues. What do you think are some of the major issues that our community face, and what are you doing in your position at AtlantiCare to address those issues?
Sure. I'm very passionate about this one concept that your zip code can determine your life expectancy. And what we found is that someone who lives in 08401, which is Atlantic City, could have a less life expectancy of someone who lives maybe 2 miles down the way in Ventnor, or maybe 5 miles offshore. And a lot of that has to do with what we call social determinants of health. Lack of access to healthcare, lack of access to good healthy food, lack of access to financial literacy. All these things play into one's life expectancy. So I think when we look at the totality of what is a major issue pertaining to our community's health, it's really addressing all avenues that lead to good life expectancy. But since I heard Lisa talk about Men's Mental Health Month, I want to shout out that as well, because I think that's just as important as your mental health is extremely important to your overall well-being. And as I was saying earlier, I saw this as an opportunity with our hospital. We have a program called the Hospital Violence Intervention Program, which takes individuals who come into our emergency room that come in with gunshot, assault, some type of trauma or violent related entrance points to the ED, and we track those people. We put them in a program and we say, listen, we see that you're here because of X, Y, and Z. We need to make sure that you get the resources following you up. And so on top of that, we created this program that kicked off this month called the Life Expectancy Program, where we have about 10 men from this area who have been impacted by trauma, gunshots, violent stabbing, incident, things like that. And we're putting them through a 4-week crash course of different sessions, financial literacy. They all had to get a physical. We have mental health services that they're going to get from our psychiatrist next week. We're taking them to the PAL building to do a basketball game, talk about physical fitness, and then we're bringing them back and talking about social determinants of health. So all of these things are really important, as if we have strong, mentally sound people in our communities, we will have a healthy community.
You talk about anti-violence. Just last week, the city of Atlantic City hosted the National Anti-Violence Conference, and people from all over the country, from California to Atlantic City, all up and down to Alabama, came in. A really great conference, over 500 different, 500 individuals representing, 30, 40 different agencies that's doing anti-violence in the communities. I live on the zip code you talked about. I live in Atlantic City, love Atlantic City, and I was privileged to be on one of the panels for the anti-violence on last week. We have this city. We worked a lot with anti-violence through a lit program, dealing with anti-violence. And this year, up until I think yesterday, we had no murders in Atlantic City. And I was very disappointed and concerned about. I think we had a shooting last night that someone was killed. The first one of the year. We can't rest until there are no murders in Atlantic City, but our prayers are out for the family of who's been victimized by violence. I think it's very interesting what you're talking about, because when we start talking about health disparities, and we are talking about because of your zip code, it affects your lifespan. But that is so layered. I mean, it's just not violence. It's the economy. It's your financial status. It's your living conditions.
School districts.
Yeah. So talk about kind of unlayer that a little bit.
So we have a vision at AtlantiCare called Vision 2030 that our CEO has laid out, where we want to improve people's life expectancy by 5 years. And when you look at that, how can you do that? Is not just making sure people get screenings, which we're doing right now, which we'll talk about later. But it's like you said, it's looking at the layers of people's health and livelihood. And so we have to address where those gaps in care are. Whether, again, if it's, not having access to food. Okay, now we need to find ways to educate our community members about where they can get access to food, whether it's the mobile market that we have at AtlantiCare that goes around to different areas in Atlantic City to provide grocery store items similar to what they would find at a local supermarket. Maybe it's simply with our Midtown CDC that I have a leadership role in, where helping people buy homes, so we have more homeowners than we have renters, right? So we can get them to invest back into the community. It's economic development, identifying those businesses that have desires to open up space, because maybe we have a need for a hardware store, maybe we have a need for a pet groomer, anything that we don't see in our communities. We need to spark the community to take ownership of it, so that we're not just talking about screenings and the health piece, but we're looking at the totality of someone's life. And we hear all the time, there was a Harvard professor that I still can't get out of my mind what he said when I was in college about how people leave the community because they don't see what they want to be in the community. And so I, was talking to a colleague of mine. They said, growing up, they lived in a zip code that had everything, and growing up, they said, hey, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor. Why? Because that's all they saw in their community, because their community didn't leave. They didn't say, I can't wait to turn 18 to go to college and never come back to Atlantic City or Pleasantville or wherever. So we have to encourage everyone to know that, hey, you can make the community what you need it to be. I'm a big believer in the alchemy mindset, take what you have to produce what you need. And I believe that's what our job is when we look at trying to eliminate health disparities, is taking what we have to produce what we need. And faith-based organizations are the key to that. That's why we're here today and partnering with Second Baptist to do screenings and make sure that people have access to resources.
But I think that Atlantic City is a very unique city, and that we can model various things that could be duplicated in other places. Not that that the city is so unique from other places, but it is unique in the sense that Atlantic City is 48 blocks. Is one of those rare opportunities that corporate, government, and the community and religious institutions, we all have a relationship. We're so small. People talk about, you see the same people. But Atlantic City is small. We have those relationships, and I don't care what great idea, what is really based on relationships.
Absolutely.
If you got right relationships, and if you know each other, work together, you can get much more accomplished through relationships. I tell people all the time, you can come up with the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't have the relationships, it's difficult to get those things done.
Absolutely.
We have the relationships in these 48 blocks. We've got the largest hospital system in our area. We have great government who's a great working partner with the mayor. The community group. Your father's a minister. I know your father well, and all of them are community minded. So how can we leverage those things? As you said today, we're grateful for AtlantiCare. We've been a great partner. We're always big about having health fairs and the wonderful thing about you guys is not you have a health fair near the hospital, you guys come out to the churches, right where people, and I'm a major advocate of those things, and there's a lot of other things we want to do in partnership. But how important is that, and what can we do together to really address because we want Atlantic City to come up. Not just Atlantic City, but Atlantic City is the economic engine for all of South Jersey. Mm-hmm. And what happens in Atlantic City, it has an impact everywhere else in South Jersey. If we can pull some things off it, and we're really excited about, but what are some of those things that we should be doing to address the issues that we face in this zip code?
Yeah, I think we have to expose all the issues that people are dealing with. One of the best things about taking my teammates who may not be from Atlantic City but work in Atlantic City is taking them into the community to see exactly what's going on, right? Many times providers only see patients when they come through the hospital doors, right? So they're only addressing it at a reactionary level. But what happens when we take those same providers and say, let's go into a church, let's go into a community-based organization, and let's proactively have these conversations. So I was doing a COPD event a couple weeks ago at Shore Park High Rise, and I was astounded by the many people who are from a generation that did not know that cigarettes were not good for their lungs. There was one story that was told to me that this woman was from the South. This is literally what she said in front of everyone. She grew up in a neighborhood in the South where tobacco was their primary economic provider, right? So they grew tobacco. You were looked at as a bad citizen if you did not buy and smoke the tobacco. And so now she comes up to the North, that mindset is still there. And she's still smoking tobacco. She's still smoking cigarettes because in her mind, if she doesn't, it's like she's not being a good community person. And so something as small as exposing all of our providers to some of the gaps, because, if I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, and I see the same patient over and over again, and I begin to build a bias of, see, this patient don't listen to me, this patient don't want to get better. Instead of actually going into the community and looking at the surroundings and the environment, this is where we'll begin to break down those barriers, those biases that tend to plague healthcare systems, because we're not engaged in the community enough. And so I think what we have to do is, one, expose the community to the providers, and expose the providers to the community, so that we can directly create interventions that will allow for longer life expectancy, but more a healthier community.
What are some of those programs that you are bringing to the community now?
Yep. So I'm looking forward to, in the fall, we'll be doing it at Second, but I have partnered with LabCorp. We are bringing PSA screening for prostate cancer. And so we had an event back in February at O&A's Barbershop where we screened about 21 men. Then just this week or last week at my father's church in Pleasantville, we brought LabCorp again and did some prostate screenings. And then we're coming back in the fall to Second Baptist on a Sunday to do the exact same thing. We see that prostate cancer is one of the leading causes of death as a cancer-related death with particularly African-American men. We're doing colon cancer screenings through Cologuard. We actually had a successful event with Second Baptist. I got to stay at Second Baptist. All these successful events that we're doing. We also doing a lot of work with COPD, which stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's a formation of different lung diseases. You can have emphysema, bronchitis, anything particular to your breathing. And then also, but the main thing that we really want to make sure people have is a primary care doctor. A lot of people, you'd be surprised how many people use the emergency room or urgent care as their only form of getting care from a provider. And so we are really on a campaign to make sure that everyone has a doctor, even if it's not AtlantiCare. Get a doctor so that you can stay up to date on all your screenings, all your checks, advocate for yourself. Sometimes people, they will say, okay, the doctor said it was good, so I'm not going to investigate anymore. I'm not going to talk about any symptoms. And then they let symptoms keep going, and then it's too late sometimes. And so we really want to make sure that our interventions align with the community's need, which again are providing primary care services, getting access to cancer screenings, getting access to blood pressure screenings and glucose screenings, so that hypertension and diabetes no longer will be a silent killer in our communities. And more importantly, making sure that there are people here to talk, as well as representation of the community here. If I could say this, I got to tell you this because I'm really proud of this. So today, there's a young lady. 2 years ago, we started a program with Cheney University. Cheney University is the first historically black college. And so AtlantiCare signed a partnership with them in 2023. with some vision that I had, and every semester we would bring about 25 students, and we would bring these students. They come from all over the world, African American, Latino. They come to Atlantic City for a week. They see the community. They kind of figure out what they want to do. And so one of the things that we did was we were able to take about 7 students in the past year and a half. 3 of them we put through nursing school right here in Stockton, and they now live in the community, and they're working as nurses in Atlantic City and mainland. We also just hired 3 respiratory therapists, and one of those respiratory therapists is here today doing the COPD screening. She's from Philadelphia. She lives in Atlantic County. She's like, I want to get in the community and help the people. So we have to also give space to make sure that our systems are reflective of the communities that we're serving. And so I'm really proud of that. So when we talk about the health stuff, we also got to engage our students, our community, about engagement with workforce development, making sure they're going back to school for the things that we need. Not everybody can be, an entrepreneur and a YouTube, Instagram influencer, but we do need more nurses and doctors and techs and all that. So I'm really excited about that. And, again, making sure that we are producing what we need for our community.
One of the things that, I'm a tremendous advocate for, I'm excited for the PSAs that we're going to have here in the fall. I am a prostate cancer survivor, and the wonderful thing, I caught it before it was even in stage 1. And that's because of access to healthcare. And that's why it's so important that we do those PSAs. We were hoping to do it earlier. And I had all the men excited. Can you imagine men being excited about PSA tests? And so we're just giving us more time to get information out.
Absolutely.
So we're really looking for a big turnout. So we're going to be announcing that. We want everybody to come out, free PSA. It is so important to men's health. When you really think about health disparities, I think it's important, as you said, that people need to have their own personal doctor. Can't be, they need to have someone who can track their health record. And, it's been a tremendous benefit to my family and I that oftentimes our community see doctors as ethereal, someone way out that you don't have access, don't touch, you don't ask them questions, you just go listen to what they say. We've been blessed to have, doctors, we can call them on the telephone and just talk to them and chat, they're friends. And that makes a difference in our healthcare. That we have someone we're familiar with, that we know by name, they know us, they take the time to have discussions about what our real issues are. And I think that's important for even AtlantiCare to have, doctors that, they don't come to the room and just look at you and just make assumptions, but to find out what's really going on, find out who you are, and give people a comfortability that said, listen, I got a right to health care, and it's so important to their longevity.
Yeah.
You could add 5 years to a person's life if they just get a personal doctor and just have a relationship with them and have access to them. That's the easiest thing, and I know that there's so many other programs out there where you can get the health care. Maybe talk a little bit about that, how people can get a personal doctor.
Yeah, so you can always, you can always go to AtlantiCare.org, and you can go to the bottom of the screen, and there's something called the Access Center, and there's a phone number you can call over, and there's someone who will pick up the phone and say, let's get you scheduled. They'll ask about insurance. Now, you may say, Christian, I don't have insurance. Okay, so we have something called a federally qualified health center, also known to the community as the AtlantiCare Healthplex, which is 1401 Atlantic Avenue, right across from City Hall. That is a federally qualified health center that helps the uninsured and the underinsured. And so if you don't have any insurance, you need to go over there, and they will help you with even managing getting insurance, whether it's Medicaid or Medicare services. I also want to mention that AtlantiCare is a teaching hospital, so that means we receive medical residents. These are students who graduate from medical school, and they do their 3 years of teaching and learning at the hospital. A lot of them you'll see at the federally qualified health center. You'll see them in the emergency room. But why I like to say that, because these doctors do a lot of community work with myself, and so they love going out into community, like you said, building a relationship. So, but definitely you can go to AtlantiCare.org. You can go to that website, or you can call the operator, and we can get you set up. You can reach out to me or Pastor Days, and he'll connect you to me. But it's primarily, extremely important that you have a doctor, because that doctor, to Pastor Days' point, you can have a comfortable conversation with them. I know my doctor gets tired of me. I see something on YouTube and I call my doctor and say, is this me? Do I? And you know what? But I'd rather advocate for myself. I did my prostate exam at 35 years old. I didn't need to do it. quite frankly, I walked in at the wrong time, and I didn't know what a prostate exam was until they closed the door, and I said, "Oh, that's a prostate." I found out very quickly.
Yeah. But now the PSAs is not that; it's just a blood test. You don't have to go through that. That's all you need: a blood test, a quick blood draw, and that's it. So don't scare people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. No. So we do PSAs as a blood test. Listen, in all seriousness, I had a man tell me last week, 36 years old, he'd rather die than get a DRE or the other form of a prostate exam. 36 years old, told me he'd rather die. So.
And you know the unfortunate thing, I've known people 35 years old to die from prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to. They went to treatment late. And that's an early age to get prostate cancer. But for African American males,
yep.
you have to be very, very careful, especially if you have that history, that family history. Is important that you do that. But there is so many other programs, because one of the things that we talk about health is, we talked about the violence and other disparities in the community that it causes. But there's another issue. Atlantic City, in particular, has a high population of seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Very, high population of seniors. And one of the things in our city, because we have so many senior housing, there are a lot of seniors that don't have anyone to give them an extra push for health care.
Yep.
Sometimes their money run out before the month, their medication run out before the month. And I know you got some programs,
yes.
the PACE program, because I call all the time and say, listen, we got somebody I'm concerned about, tell us a little bit about the PACE program.
Yes, so the PACE program is connected to our federally qualified health center at the HealthPlex. This is for individuals. Well, I thank you for bringing that up, because the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services just announced a lot of work around social isolation. What they found was a lot of seniors after COVID were living by themselves. Their only forms of entertainment was smoking cigarettes or drinking or doing different things that were harmful to their bodies. And so interventions such as the PACE program, which allows patients to sign up more like an adult daycare services, right, where they have access to activities, they have access to providers. All their providers and doctors are right on site, so they don't have to go anywhere. If they have to take them to a specialist, we take them. They get access to even care management and case management, get access to social services. And so we have social workers who say, all right, when you leave here and you go home, if you need food, we'll make sure that you have some of those things that get connected to that. So it's very important that we look at, the density of Atlantic City with senior populations, but we also need to also acknowledge that we do need interventions, and the PACE program is one of those interventions where we can really be preventative in our care. Met a woman who turned 98 years old in the PACE program, and I didn't even know, and she had a stroke last year, and I didn't even know, but she credited the PACE program for keeping her active, keeping her on top of things, and so we're really proud of that work that they're doing there.
I think one of the greatest interventions, and this is a role that churches and social groups can play, because oftentimes we notice things, a decline or an absence, and to get involved personally with them and make those. That's why it's very important to have those connections to AtlantiCare, to those kind of programs, to people like Christian, and you need to advocate for those parents, for those people, those seniors in the community, and not just seniors, but anyone there's nothing wrong with making a telephone call, inquiring about someone, and seeing that they can get the help to make sure they're okay. Because one of the things that always concerned me, especially with seniors who are alone, and you can see it might be a decline in their mental acuity. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough part to do, but it's important because they become a risk not only to themselves but even to a lot of people in the senior building. Cooking and forgetting their cooking, and that's something that we really need to be about. When it comes to mental health at AtlantiCare, tell us a little bit about mental health.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk a little bit more about what's the plans for men's mental health, because that's something we're going to have to deal with and address even next month as well. That's something we got to work on some programs for.
Absolutely. And so mental health is one of the major reasons. People think about health. I always say you can't have good health without mental health. So we have services within our AtlantiCare behavioral health team where we offer therapy, we offer social services, particularly we have a building in Atlantic City on Hartford Avenue. They have walk-ins if you have a mental episode. I hear a lot of talk about the unhoused population, and we look at them face value, but a lot of those individuals are also struggling with their mental health as well. And so sometimes we see them in the emergency room, right? But we have to also give them access to other things as well. We also have to be mindful of the unconscious bias with individuals who are having mental health issues, because sometimes you may say, oh, that's Jimmy. Jimmy's always doing that. But maybe Jimmy has a broken leg. Maybe Jimmy is actually suffering with a stroke. And so sometimes we classify people as being the person who has mental health issues and don't realize there's actually something else going on there that we need to address. So I think it's also important when we talk about mental health that we don't just classify people as having mental health issues to the point where bias kicks in and we don't see them beyond that. But we have to continue to make sure we look at people from a humanitarian standpoint. But AtlantiCare, we have mental health services, again, that is striving to make sure that our community is getting the help that they need. And we also have services at the Federally Qualified Health Center through our behavioral health, a great psychiatric team, great mental health therapist team, great crisis intervention team. And I also mentioned earlier the hospital violence intervention program that I'm working directly with to help those individuals who suffer trauma. So a lot to say, but more to do.
There's a lot to do, and I'm really grateful for you, because I think you've made a tremendous change in terms of community access. I mean, AtlantiCare has always been community oriented and made a lot of community impact. But you coming on board has made a big difference because you understand the neighborhood, you understand the community. You're from Atlantic City. You work well in the religious community. Great preacher yourself. Great community man. And I mean, there's very few things that I go to that's community that you're not around. I mean, there are community events that I see you at so many different community events, and you represent our community well. And we want to say congratulations, and we're looking forward to great things. Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of Kingdom Conversations, because this is a conversation that the kingdom really needs to have. We need to talk about the disparity, the health disparity. And even as it relates, and we'll talk about this another time, even when it comes to bias to the community, when it comes to healthcare, and how they look and view when we go. And I'd like to talk a little bit at a later date what's being done to change that attitude toward the African American community, men and women as relates. So we're really grateful and thankful. You're thankful for what you're doing today, and and there are other churches and other groups out there that want to do things. Christian is, I'm telling you, Christian is available. You call him, he's one of the few people. Even when I call my wife, she don't pick up the phone. I call Christian answers the phone, and if he doesn't answer the phone, he calls you right back very quickly and ready and willing to work. So utilize that great opportunity that we have. Utilize access. Access is power. And so we thank you. Christian, you got any closing words you want to leave with Kingdom Conversations?
Yeah, well, listen, thank you again. I love Second Baptist. I definitely want to have another conversation around cultural competency and bias, because that's, people know me, people going to ED, they call me, and I love it, because I want to make sure, not that they're getting special treatment, but I want to make sure that they feel seen and heard. And I want to shout out our AtlantiCare team. They are doing great things to be educated on the community. This is why doing community outreach is so important, because it's kind of each one reach one, and then when they go back to the hospital, they can talk about their experience at Second Baptist, talking to 8 people who may have COPD and maybe why they have it, or maybe they didn't know they had it. So it's going to be a collective of cultural competency through lived experiences. So, but I'm excited, and today I just want to shout out Second Baptist. As soon as we got here, I think we screened about 10-15 people for COPD in 30 minutes. And we have about maybe another 25 for blood pressure. So excited about the community, excited about Second Baptist, excited about our opportunity as AtlantiCare to change the life expectancy for the better for our people.
Thank you again. Thank you so much, Christian, for coming and sharing with us. Thank you, Lisa Thomas L., who shared with us today and who's also listening to this part of the conversation as well. I've got to run down and get my screening done. But I also want to thank you. Please listen out next week. Eddie Wilson's going to be a part. Next 2 weeks, I'm going to be away. Pray for me, lift me up. I'll be in Australia, but I'm looking forward to coming back and sharing with you my experience in down under. And so we're excited. Thank you so much for joining with us. Again, thank you for listening to Kingdom Conversations. God bless you. And that wraps up another powerful episode of Kingdom Conversations, where faith meets life and purpose is revealed. We pray today's dialogue stirred your spirit, sparked your thinking, and strengthened your walk with God. Remember, the kingdom is not just a place where we're going, it's a way of living here and now. So stay rooted in the Word, stay connected in the community, and stay bold in your faith. If this episode blessed you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join the conversation online and help us spread the kingdom message far and wide. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, keep walking in kingdom purpose. God bless you, and we'll see you next time on Kingdom Conversations.